I like to call it the health plan with the side effect of weight loss. So over time, like I said, I went over to lose over 80 pounds, and I've been maintaining that loss ever since. And I feel better than I've ever felt, in my adult life, and I'm healthier than I've ever been. And I don't even have to struggle with thinking about food, thinking about eating, thinking about dieting. And it's just really a very freeing way to live.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who is out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode.
Hey, it's Bob Nickman here. This is The Exploding Human, and that was Jen Stevens. You heard it there at the beginning. We're going to be talking today about intermittent fasting. Lots of really great information, so stay tuned for that. First, I want to say I would love it if you would go to my website, theexplodinghuman.com, check that out, and there is photos and synopses of all my episodes, a little bio on myself if you are interested in that, and a donate button for Patreon if you want to be a supporter of the show. And I would also love it if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is, of course, free to subscribe. That is The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. That's how you find it. You got to add the with Bob Nickman. So today we're going to be talking to Jen Stevens. She has struggled with, in her past, with obesity, and discovered intermittent fasting a number of years ago, and found it to be the not only the solution to some weight loss for her, well, significant weight loss, and because it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change. When I first heard the word fasting, I thought, I don't want to be hungry, and that's not what this is. This is a way of eating, a lifestyle, and it is something that has changed the lives of a lot of people. She has hundreds of thousands of people that she communicates with her podcasts and Facebook page and her books. She is a font of knowledge, yes. So if you're interested in maybe changing your lifestyle or the way you eat or how you eat, what you eat, some of these things that cause us a lot of difficulties in life, this is a great episode to listen to. So let's waste no further time and get to the talk with Jen Stevens. Hi, Jen.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I am so good, and I'm so glad to talk to you all the way in Augusta, GA.
Right.
That's Georgia, for those who don't know what the abbreviated initials for the state are. And we're going to talk about intermittent fasting today. I know you have a website. I'm going to plug that right up at the top. You plug it, because if I say it wrong, because I got your name wrong earlier.
All right. It's jenstevens.com, and that's spelled Gin, like gin and tonic, Stephen's, jenstevens.com.
Okay, and there was something about intermittent fasting stories.
Intermittent Fasting Stories is a podcast that I do, and every week I talk to an intermittent faster, and they tell their story, just like you would probably guess from the name.
Yeah, it's a perfect name for what you're doing.
Exactly. And my other podcast is the Intermittent Fasting Podcast, and I do that one with a co-host, Melanie Avalon, and we generally answer listener questions. People send them in. We talk about all things fasting.
I know very little about intermittent fasting. Here's what I do know. A lot of people are doing it.
Right.
And I was telling my friend, I said, I'm interviewing this woman tomorrow about intermittent fasting. He goes, isn't that what you do between meals?
Some people are more intermittent than others, right?
Yeah, right. I go, so it's really non-snacking. But I know it's more than that. I'm just being silly.
Right.
So tell us, because I don't know much about intermittent fasting. I've read a little bit, but I'm probably, a little bit of knowledge can be pretty dangerous and I might
Right.
get it wrong. So I'm going to let you tell the listeners first of all, what is it? Why do we do it?
I'm a 50-year-old woman who struggled with weight for a good part of my life, like so many women and men in today's society. And I was always either dieting or thinking about dieting, what was I going to do? And at one point, I got up as high as 210 pounds. And that was, really tough for me. I'm 5'5" and I was obese. And so that was in 2014. I started intermittent fasting, jumped into it as a lifestyle rather than a weight loss diet finally. I mean, yes, I wanted to lose weight, right? But,
Yeah, right.
at finally in 2014, I realized it wasn't just something you did a little while, lost some weight, then you stop doing it. It really is a lifestyle and it's a healthy lifestyle. I like to call it the health plan with the side effect of weight loss. So over time, like I said, I went over to lose over 80 pounds and I've been maintaining that loss ever since. And I feel better than I've ever felt, in my adult life. And I'm healthier than I've ever been. And I don't even have to struggle with thinking about food, thinking about eating, thinking about dieting. And it's just really a very freeing way to live. So why is everyone talking about intermittent fasting? Well, besides the fact that it works, it's like one of those things that people are spreading word of mouth. Like, hey, let me tell you what I'm doing. Everyone tells their friends, and then they tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and so it's really reaching that point of exponential growth. But around the holidays, right after Christmas, there was a journal article in the New England Journal of Medicine, which I'm sure you have heard of. It's
Hmm.
only the top medical journal in the world. But there was an article in there that was basically it was a kind of a summary article that pulled all the health research about intermittent fasting into one article. And really, after that was released, the media just went crazy, and it was on all the talk shows. And it was right around diet season, so everyone was like, I'm gonna try this too. And so intermittent fasting is really everywhere right now. After that article came out, doctors are doing it, doctors are prescribing it to their patients.
My first reaction, this is a visceral reaction, is
All right.
I don't want to be hungry.
Well, good news. The thing about intermittent fasting is so the opposite of what you think. First, I did not make this saying up. I can't attribute it to the person who originally said it because I'm not sure, but it's something I've heard and it's so very true. Diets are easy in contemplation, but hard in execution. Think about all the diets you've ever tried. You think about them, you're like, yeah, I can do that. But they're really hard to execute and they get harder and harder the longer you do them. Any kind of diet you've ever done gets harder and harder. You fall off the wagon, then you yo yo back up. We're used to that story. That's how it usually goes. Intermittent fasting is the opposite. It's hard in contemplation, but it's easy in execution. And the longer you do it, it doesn't get harder and harder and harder. It actually gets easier and easier, and you never want to stop.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know how many people are going, well, really? Is that
Yeah.
possible? I'm not, I think dieting is really counterproductive. And
Me
like,
too.
as you say, and
Yeah.
I don't really struggle with a weight issue, but I know a lot of
Mhm.
people that do.
Right.
And
Intermittent fasting is the anti-diet, really, because it's the way you live, and you feel so much better and you never have to diet again.
I have two questions. What is the sort of formula for intermittent fasting? And secondly, is it one size fits all? And how do you adjust to each
That's
person?
great question. It is completely not one size fits all. And there's so many different ways you can go about it. The most popular way is also called time restricted eating, or you could think of it as the eating window approach. A lot of people have heard of 16-8, for example. Have you heard of that? 16-8?
I haven't heard the actual numbers, but I've
Okay.
heard of you only eat between these hours and then
Right.
you don't eat again
Yes.
until the next
That's
day.
that's time restricted eating, or the eating window approach. So think of that period of time when you're eating as your eating window. And 16-8 is just one that's been highly publicized. You have all of your eating within an 8-hour window. For example, a lot of people might open their window at noon and close it at 8 p.m. and everything goes inside that window. So basically you're just skipping breakfast and waiting until lunch, and you're having lunch and you're having dinner, and that's it. Now, the thing about that is it's a very healthy way to live with the 16-hour fast, but it may not be a weight loss window for everybody. If weight loss is your goal, you may need a longer daily fast than that. But 16-8 is a great place to start. My husband does it strictly for the health benefits. He never needed to lose weight. He's always been, really lean. He always had a 32-inch waist. When we got married back in 1991, he could still fit into those pants. But he is a scientist. He has a PhD in medicinal chemistry. So the health benefits really convinced him. And he started just skipping breakfast and just having lunch and dinner. And he felt so much better that he sticks to it. I said before, it's the health plan with the side effect of weight loss. Let's think about, modern day. Basically, we have a new problem here in the modern era, and it has to do with us always being in the fed state. If you even go back, 50 years to our grandparents' generation, they had smaller meals than we have, of course. And they also didn't snack all the time. You didn't walk around with a giant cup of coffee from your favorite coffee shop. No, you had a little tiny cup of black coffee with your little tiny breakfast. Then you didn't snack, and you had a little lunch. And then, people were not eating with the frequency that we're eating now. And so we're constantly in the fed state, and our bodies are constantly in the fat storing state, and we never quite get to the fat burning state. Even if you're eating frequently and there's small meals, like let's say you're eating, 6 times a day because you're having your breakfast, your snacks, your lunch, your snacks, and so forth. Again, you're staying in the fed state. And just when you get to the point that your body might be ready to dip into your fat stores, you're topping back up with something else. And so you end up on that blood sugar roller coaster where you're a sugar burner. And as soon as your body runs out of that easily accessible fuel that's right there in your bloodstream, your body says, all right, eat again. And you do. And so you never are able to tap into stored fat, and you just feel hungry and yucky. And our bodies lose the ability to tap into fat stores. We actually, don't have the fat burning enzymes that we need because we're not used to having to do it. So it's very complicated, but it's a result, the obesity epidemic is a result of us eating frequently, drinking our, sweetened beverages all day long. So many things are going on in the body that it's just not normal.
Wow, I didn't realize that the body chemistry actually changes and you lose the ability to burn.
We're supposed to be metabolically flexible. Go back 1,000 years, 2,000 years, go back to the hunter-gatherers, go all the way back. People had to work for their food, and we had to be able to survive and have energy and hunt. Let's say you were having a famine and you needed to hunt. You weren't going to be hangry and lethargic and laying around. Your body had to have a way to get energy, and that's what our fat stores are there for. We're supposed to be able to access the fat stores when we need them, and then we're supposed to be able to access our food when we're eating. So we're supposed to be able to flip back and forth between the fed state and the fasted state naturally with zero struggle. But being constantly in the fed state, our bodies kind of lose that connection. So there's a great journal article that was written by the same authors that wrote the one in the New England Journal of Medicine. And they wrote it maybe in 2018, I can't remember, but it was called Flipping the Metabolic Switch. And I love the sound of that title, because that really is what we're learning how to do with fasting. We're learning how to flip that metabolic switch and get back to how we're supposed to be.
And what about the type of food that people should or shouldn't be eating? I know everyone's a little bit different.
Right.
Is that a piece of it, or is it just about when?
I actually encourage people not to change what they're eating and start intermittent fasting all at the same time. And that goes to know however you're eating. Like let's say you're doing low carb right now and you've been doing low carb for a while and you're like, now I'm going to do intermittent fasting. I don't want you to start intermittent fasting, also reintroduce all the foods, change your eating at the same time, because that's a lot for your body to deal with. On the flip side, if you've been eating the standard American diet, fast food, packaged food, processed food, and you start intermittent fasting, I also don't want you to completely change your diet and say, now I'm going to fast and I'm going to change all my foods at the same time. I want you to introduce your body to intermittent fasting, adjust to that. Then you can start tweaking your food choices to figure out what works best for you. I'm writing a new book. Actually, I've written it. It's available for pre-order now. It's called Fast, Feast, Repeat. And in it, I have a whole chapter about ultra processed foods and how it really does make a difference when it comes to, what foods we choose for our bodies. And the beautiful thing about intermittent fasting is that it guides most of us naturally towards choosing higher quality foods. Our bodies don't count calories. Our bodies look for nutrients. We all, know the stories of pregnant women who start craving things.
Yes,
Like
I've been up close and personal with that one.
well, when I was pregnant with my first son, I went through a phase where I wanted nothing but creamed spinach. I'd never eaten
Oh,
spinach in my life, but I
yeah,
was craving creamed spinach. My
yeah.
body was needing some kind of nutrient. I don't know what I was growing for that period of time, but
Mm-hmm.
our bodies have those cravings for a reason. So when you're doing intermittent fasting and you get into the fasted state, you become to be more connected with what your body needs. And so, when I started, I was eating pretty much the standard American diet. I was eating fast food, I was eating quick food, junk food. And then over time, a funny thing happened. I started craving more nutritious foods. And so now I'm eating things I never ate before. Brussels sprouts are now delicious.
Yeah.
But I no longer really enjoy those ultra processed foods, but it happened naturally.
I love to hear that because that's, I
Mhm.
think a lot of, you always hear people go, well, I'm not giving up my pizza,
Well, don't give up your pizza.
Yeah.
But one day, I tell this story. I can't remember if it was my first book or my second book, but in one of my books, I tell the story of we used to order Papa John's pizza every Friday. And I'm not knocking it because I loved it. I mean, it was like my favorite pizza. I ordered so much pizza that one year they sent me a poinsettia at Christmas. Like, I'm not kidding. But once my body changed, I started not craving it anymore. I didn't want it. And then every now and then my husband would say, let's order pizza. And I remember the first time we ordered my old favorite Papa John's pizza. And I'm like, they have changed their recipe. This is different. What is wrong? He's like, no, it's exactly like it always was. And I'm like, oh, I've changed. My taste has changed.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't know they sent poinsettias. What an odd gift.
Still love pizza, but the difference is that it's the kind of pizza I want is really different. We have a great restaurant here in town where they make homemade pizza. They make their crust from scratch and it has high quality toppings. And if I want pizza, that's what I want.
Now, here's an interesting thought that I'm telling you, my thought is interesting. I don't know if it is. What about people that overeat,
Mm-hmm.
like in the same way that a drug addict would would drink, an alcoholic would
Right.
drink, or a drug addict would take? Like, there's a craving and
Mm-hmm.
an emotional component to wanting to shut down feelings or
Yeah.
hide from feelings, and that is, you know, when I a lot of times when I, the times when I do overeat, it's because I'm feeling something I don't want to feel. So I'm like, what would be good right now? A giant bowl of oatmeal or a big
Yeah.
pizza, something to quiet me down so I can, just sort of check out.
That's a great point because a lot of times when people are starting off with intermittent fasting and they're adjusting to the lifestyle, they do go through a period where they almost have to learn how to cope differently because you're fasting now, and so you can't use the same mechanism. So people have to go through that struggle um, and realize, gosh, I've got to handle this in a different way. Now, of course, when your eating window opens, you eat. And the thing about that is, if you've been an overeater, it doesn't feel great when you've had too much, the feeling of having had a binge or eating too much. But with fasting, we reconnect, besides just with the signals of what to eat, we reconnect with our appetite control signals, the feelings of satiety. Think about a young child, a toddler. When you're feeding a toddler, they stop when they've had enough. You can't make them eat anymore. And then we go, please eat a little more. And then we teach them to, bypass those signals. And then they're just eating because you tell them to. Well, the same with us as adults. We've lost those signals. But when you reconnect with them, your body says, that's enough. You've had enough. We call that appetite correction. That phrase was coined by Dr. Burt Hearing. He has a book called AC, The Power of Appetite Correction. And basically we reconnect with those signals just like animals in the wild. Lions don't have to count calories.
No, they don't.
you know and they also don't get fat until they get to the zoos, and now we're feeding them on a schedule differently. So animals in captivity, pets have trouble with obesity. Animals in the wild do not. So, that's just a very interesting thing to think about. We can connect just like those wild animals.
Yeah, I've never seen a fat gazelle.
You haven't. But I bet if you go to the zoo and put them on a feeding schedule, you could have an overweight gazelle.
So you're saying that, starting intermittent fasting, there might be a period of adjustment where you're
Oh, yeah.
having some, emotional feelings
Right.
also, other than, maybe like I'm hungry now because it's, my window is closed, but I'm used to eating at 10 o'clock at night. So what am I going to do? So what do people do in the beginning? Let's say that the window is what you said, 12 to 8.
Right.
Let's just say it's that. So I did okay. I skipped breakfast. I had a nice lunch and nothing in between, or I can eat in between 12 and 8
You
with that
can.
window.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm eating, and I'm done at 8. 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock comes around. I'm watching a show on TV. I'd like some popcorn, maybe some, just, even an apple.
Mhm.
What do I do with that?
Well, here's the thing. A lot of people find that apps help them. You can use an app to open your window, close your window. That tiny little psychological, I've closed my window on the app, makes a lot of people realize, okay, I'm not going to have to reopen it. I'm not going to do that. That's a little tiny trick that helps a lot of people. If someone is really struggling with late night eating, like you're talking about, my advice would be to first shift that eating window to encompass it. Don't open at noon. If you struggle with nighttime eating, then you need to have an eating window that allows that. Shift it up. Maybe open your eating window at 4 p.m. Have
Hmm.
it be 4 p.m. to midnight. Okay. Now, I'm not encouraging you to binge at 10 p.m. That's not what I'm saying, but having that permission to have your eating window at that time, and then you can learn to listen to your body within that period of time.
So you don't feel deprived. You just feel like
Exactly.
this. Yeah. And
Yeah.
do you recommend an 8 hour,
Well,
or it
an 8 hour
depends?
window is a great place to start. But as
Hmm.
I said earlier, it may not be a weight loss window for a lot of people. That's because when you're fasting, once your body has adjusted, it takes about 12 hours average. This is just an average, depending on what you ate, about 12 hours to really get finished with your last meal and be ready to enter the fasted state. So you enter the fasted state around hour 12, perhaps, depending, and then it ramps up. When you start getting between hours 18 and hours 24, that's when fat burning accelerates more. You're deeper into the fasted state. So it's like that exponential curve. Instead of just, you're just steadily burning, it actually ramps up during that period of time the longer you're going. So if you always open your window at 16 hours, you're missing out on that accelerated fat burning that you're looking for. So if you can make it to 19 hours, a 19-5 approach is a really good weight loss window for a lot of people. A 5 hour eating window, when you're starting off, that might sound nuts. Like, how in the world can I only eat within 5 hours? That's why you start with something bigger, but then you work your way up to that. Then you realize there's plenty of eating that can go on in a 5 hour window and
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't feel
Yeah.
deprived at all. I don't open my eating window now until anytime in the late afternoon, maybe 3, maybe 5. It depends. Yesterday I was under a deadline, so I was working on edits for my new book that I had to send to my publisher, and I worked straight through till 6 p.m. And then my husband said, "We got to eat now. I'm going to die." And I was like, "Okay, fine." So I probably didn't eat till 6:45. We went to a restaurant, and that was, I was super busy, but I was fine. And I had a really short window yesterday because I'm used to fasting. I have great energy and mental clarity during the fast. I felt great. I was never hangry. I could have kept working for hours and been fine. You just have to understand that your body does get to that point where it's really just not something you have to think about.
Did you say hangry?
Hangry. Yeah.
Well, that's like hungry and angry mixed.
Right, right. Yeah.
Okay. Did you coin
I
that word? It's a good
I know,
word.
no, I did not make up
Oh,
hangry. I wish I
oh,
had. That would be fun, but no, I did
yeah.
not.
Now, what about sugar? Is that something you struggled with? Because I know a lot of people have sugar issues.
Yeah,
I was just talking to a friend of mine this morning how he battles with sugar and he knows it's not good for him. He actually is a workout guy and he
right.
knows what good food is, but he goes, I just really I eat sugar and I always feel like crap afterwards,
Yeah.
but I want it.
That's another thing that really intermittent fasting has helped me with. I didn't realize that sugar was such a problem for my body until I'd been doing intermittent fasting for years. For example, all the way back as far as I can remember, I've had trouble with restless legs. Have you ever had trouble with that?
I have not, but I know about it.
It's miserable.
Yeah, they
Can't
kind of jump around like twitching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you just feel like you want to get up and run. But, like let's say you're at the movie theater and you're sitting there and you can't get up and run because and you just have that horrible feeling in your legs. And so I've struggled with that always, and I didn't know why. Well, since intermittent fasting, I have 100% connected that to sugar. So if I have too much sugar, I get restless legs. And I don't like the way that feels. If I avoid sugar, I do not get restless legs at all. Does that mean I never eat sugar? No. I went out to dinner with my sister this week one night, and I had some creme brulee at the end of the meal. But it was okay. It was after a meal. It wasn't too much. It was just the right amount. I didn't have any trouble with restless legs. But it has to be worth it for me
Yeah.
to eat
Right.
sugar these days because I don't want to feel that way. So intermittent fasting really has helped me, be a grown up about what I'm eating. Last night I did not have margaritas with my Mexican food. It's very sugary. And I was like, I could, but I do still have a little more work to do when I get home. I want to be really mentally clear. I don't want to have a margarita. So I didn't. And instead of feeling, like, oh, I couldn't have a margarita, I made the decision like an adult and didn't feel the least bit deprived about it. That's really important.
And yeah, it is. And I was thinking that when you talk about mental clarity,
Mhm.
my friend John, who told me
Right.
about you and connected us, which thanks, John. Hi, wherever you are.
Hi, John.
We're hanging across the country here. Um, he says that his mental clarity has increased tremendously in his energy,
Yeah.
and that he's like super psyched about it.
Well, I can explain why. Do you want to know why?
Well, that was what I was leading to. But no, don't explain. No, please
Okay, no,
do
I'm not going to tell you.
explain.
It's going to remain a mystery.
Yeah,
No.
we have to keep the people teased a little bit to come to
Right,
your
right.
website. No, we're going to tell you why. Why is that?
Well, I'm sure you've heard of the keto diet, right?
Yes.
Keto is short for, ketosis and ketones and all those things. And basically, our bodies are great at accessing fat and turning that fat into ketones. Our brains love ketones. So our brains really like glucose. When we're on a normal day, our brains are running on the glucose from the foods that we eat. But let's say you're fasting, you don't have that quick blood glucose to fuel your brain. We can tap into our fat stores during the fast. Our bodies take that fat from our fat stores and convert that into ketones for our brain. Our brain loves ketones. And then we have that mental clarity. Now, some people might be like, oh, does that mean I have to eat keto style in my eating window? No, you do not. And that's the magic of fasting. We actually make more ketones during fasting than someone who's following a keto diet would make. And the beauty of it is we're making it from our stored fat, not from fat that we're eating. So fasting is actually more ketogenic than eating a keto diet is. So keto dieters, if you love the way you feel with ketones, try some fasting because you get them naturally, and it's not from the fat that you're eating, it's from the fat on your body.
Sounds like a genius program to me.
Well,
This
it is. And
uh,
don't buy ketones, by the way. You might have a friend who's trying to sell you exogenous ketones. Don't
I
fall
don't have
for
any
it.
friends like that. I had a friend trying to sell me some jewelry last week, but I didn't buy that either.
You can actually buy ketones now. They have these miracle weight loss supplements. I'm doing air quotes here
Okay.
because you know how miracle weight loss supplements are, right? They
Yes.
if there was a miracle weight loss supplement that everyone could take, you would never see a really rich person struggling with their weight because they would just buy thinness, but that's not how it works. You can't buy a miracle supplement and have that replace it. So don't take exogenous ketones that your friend is trying to sell you. Instead, make your own for free from your stored fat.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea. All I heard was the word fasting, and I shut my brain down to
Right.
it.
Well, see, yeah, a lot of people do because it makes you think of like, going to the desert for 40 days and 40 nights. And it sounds so restrictive and hard. But what was hard was the way I used to live when I was
Uh,
constantly trying to find the next diet, or when I was struggling with my weight, or when I was obese, or when I was on that blood sugar roller coaster and constantly in the fed state. That was hard.
yeah.
This is not hard.
Oh, that's a brutal way to live. It's just
It was.
really you're a
And
slave
yeah.
to yourself, really, and
Yep.
food. It's yeah. How did you find out about this?
Well, I'm a big reader. I've always read everything I could get my hands on. And I was fascinated, of course, with diets and nutrition all the way back. And I knew there had to be an answer. So I was always looking for it. And I actually, read everything there was about intermittent fasting in those years from 2009 until 2014 before I fully embraced it. I was still reading about it and I was dabbling in it. There were some early works about it, but a lot of the early books all kind of thought of intermittent fasting as more of like just a way to control your calories. We really didn't understand the metabolic and hormonal advantages that you got from the fasting. And so you just thought of it as, well, it's just a way of low calorie dieting in an eating window. We now know it's so much more than that. We've learned about all these things that go on when we're in the fasted state that don't go on when you're in the fed state. You ever heard the word autophagy, for example?
I have not.
No, well, the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2016 was awarded to a scientist who was studying autophagy. So it suddenly became a big word and everyone was talking about it. Well, autophagy is our body's kind of recycling and upcycling system. So that when you're in the fasted state, your body has to scrounge around to see what's there, and it starts cleaning up cells and old junky parts. And you really get into the increased autophagy when you're in the fasted state. So we started realizing, oh, there's more to it than just, eating less food. We actually have these amazing processes that go on when we're in the fasted state. Autophagy became a big word and everyone wanted more of it. And so we started to realize it's not just calorie control. And then in 2016, also that same year, Jason Fung wrote a book called The Obesity Code. Well, that really changed the intermittent fasting world a lot as well, because he taught us that our bodies are very complicated and insulin is a fat storing hormone. And so you may think of it from like the point of view of diabetes. We all think of insulin and related to type 1 diabetics who don't make insulin, type 2 diabetics who may have too much insulin. But basically, if you're in a state of high insulin all the time, think about it, you're constantly in the fed state, your body releases insulin in response to the foods you're eating, the drinks you're drinking. Insulin's a fat storing hormone. Insulin tells our body to store things. So if you have really high levels of insulin, what you're not able to do is tap into your fat stores well. So we are in this constant state of high insulin because maybe you're drinking diet sodas because you heard that they were 0 calorie and they were better for you. Well, guess what happens when you drink something sweet, whether it has 0 calories or not? Your brain doesn't understand this is a 0 calorie, Coke Zero. I don't need to worry about this. It has 0 calories. Our brains don't get that. Our brains taste the sweetness from that diet soda and think, ooh, sugar's coming in. I need to release some insulin in response to the sugar that's coming so that we can deal with the higher blood glucose that's going to be coming from the sugar. And so your body releases insulin, but sugar doesn't come in. So now you just have high insulin and nothing for the insulin to do, but it keeps you out of the fat burning state. So when you're fasting, we want to keep our insulin as low as possible. And the way to do that is to avoid anything that tastes sweet. You don't want to drink your diet sodas, your 0 calorie sweeteners. You don't want to put sweeteners in your coffee. You want to stick to black coffee, plain tea, plain water, fizzy water, but none of it with all those fancy schmancy flavors. I went to Costco one day and looked over at the beverage section. You ever shop at Costco?
Oh yes, I
And I was
yeah.
like, there's the obesity epidemic right there. And I really think that the obesity epidemic is found with what we're drinking. Because if you just walk around out in public and look, everyone has got something in their hand. It might be a bottle of water that is, lemon flavored, or it might be, they're adding water enhancers to their water, or they're drinking a big Starbucks latte. And even these things that have 0 calories are constantly telling your brain, here comes more food, here it comes, release more insulin. And so even if you're not eating food, your brain thinks that sweet things are coming in, your brain thinks that food's coming. And so insulin goes up and up and up. And we have something called hyperinsulinemia, which is linked to so many of the health conditions of today: metabolic syndrome, obesity, cardiovascular disease, autoimmune diseases, polycystic ovarian syndrome. I think it's polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS. But a lot of women are being diagnosed with that. What is that coming from? High insulin. If we can just get our insulin down, it's so much healthier. It's linked to longevity. Low insulin. Now, is insulin bad? No, we have to have insulin. We know what happens with type 1 diabetics who, they have to take insulin because their bodies don't make insulin. But what we don't want is to have constantly high insulin, 24/7.
I don't drink anything except water, regular old
Plain.
water.
Keep
That's
it
plain
plain.
water. That's all I that's the only thing I drink with meals or when. And
I'm
the only
having a mug of hot water right now.
is that what that is? Okay.
Just hot water. Yeah, because it's
Okay.
afternoon here because I'm on Eastern time, but it's hot water. Oh, this is a funny name. Somebody in one of my Facebook groups calls it MT. EMTEA. Empty.
Oh, okay.
Get it?
Well,
Just
I
a
love
mug
that
of
you
hot
do
water.
that.
Have
Yeah.
some MT.
Do you ever drink coffee?
I drink coffee in the morning. Yeah, I
That's what
stopped.
I do. I do
Yeah,
that. So when
black
I say
coffee.
I only drink water,
Yeah,
that's my only drink. I don't, drink, with
right.
meals or
But
whatever.
if
And I
you're
have coffee
fasting,
in the morning.
don't put anything in the coffee. And that's one of the biggest confusions that people have. They're like, well, I read that stevia is great for, doesn't whatever. Or maybe I could put some cream in there or have some bulletproof coffee because I saw that on Good Morning America and
Yeah.
they're fasting, but they're putting cream in their coffee. And I actually would encourage everyone to put nothing in your coffee. You need to drink it black because, cream is not fasting. What is cream? Cream is the nature's perfect food for a baby cow, right?
Yeah.
To
It's so
fatten them up.
delicious though in
It's
coffee.
delicious, yeah, but it's not fasting. It is literally nature's perfect food for building a body.
But I wanted to.
I know. Well, save it for your eating window, right?
Okay. All right. Oh, I can do that then.
You can have it any way you want it in your eating
Okay.
window.
All
Yeah.
right. And I'm absolutely fascinated with this talk because I know so many people that struggle with
Right.
food and weight issues and low energy, and it's just that sometimes you eat certain things and you just want to go to sleep.
Right.
And this seems to be the answer to a lot of issues that people have, and understanding what actually happens in the body.
Right. Well, if someone is ready to get started, I would suggest you start with my first book. It's called Delay, Don't Deny: Living an Intermittent Fasting Lifestyle. And I actually self-published it. So the paperback is only available on Amazon, but the audiobook is on Audible. You can find the ebook through all major ebook platforms. If you read Delay, Don't Deny, it's a really short read, or like I said, you can get the Audible and I'll read it to you. And it
Your very soothing voice. That's what I
Here
would
you
do.
go. And it'll explain to you how to get started. And there's a lot more to it than just, pick a window. There's a lot to help you get started in that book. So I would encourage you to read that. My new book is actually being traditionally published, which is a lot of fun. It's a whole different
Congratulations, by
process.
the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's
It's going to
awesome.
be, it's St. Martin's Press, which is a division of Macmillan. So I feel like, finally I'm like a real writer.
Yes, you are. You've arrived. And what's that title for that book?
That one's called Fast, Feast, Repeat. So you can
Wow.
pre-order it now anywhere that books are sold.
Or stolen.
Well, do not steal.
I don't know why I said that.
No. On a serious note, book counterfeiting is a huge problem.
Is it really? Did not know
Oh
that.
my gosh. And did you know if you have a really top selling book on Amazon, they will counterfeit it? I've struggled with that with Delay Don't Deny because it's a, a top selling book. in the
Wow.
weight loss category. And yeah, I've had to constantly keep my eye on the counterfeiters.
Wow. So this, and let's plug your two podcasts again,
All
because
right.
boy, I am just overwhelmed with all this great information. I didn't know what I was going to get today, and I'm super happy about it. I'm going to send this podcast to some people that I think might get a lot out of it, because it's a huge issue.
Yeah,
Food,
it is.
eating, how to do it, energy, all that stuff is sort of wrapped into this really. It almost seems like it's like we're going back to being the way nature intended us to be. It's really the simple version.
I really think our bodies are supposed to be metabolically flexible. We're supposed to be able to feel great without having to constantly top up. I mean, think about your car. You don't have to stop at every gas station and fill up your tank. You fill up, then you go as far as, and our bodies are like that too. We're not supposed to be constantly, fueling up nonstop.
Yeah, I love that expression, the fed state, being
Yeah.
in constantly in the fed state. That
Mhm.
that's that does seem strange now that you say it that way.
It does. It's just not, it's not the normal for us. It is for babies. I mean, think about that. A baby eats around the clock because they're growing. That way baby eats every 2 hours. And so they're growing, they're growing, they're growing. But we're not wanting to grow anymore. We're
Yeah.
adults. We want to stop growing. If you continue to eat like that newborn baby, you're going to continue to grow as well.
Let's talk about your podcasts and
Okay.
your website, so people can come and visit and get some more information. We've got your two books out there.
Look for intermittent fasting stories, and you'll be able to hear me talk to a wide range of different intermittent fasters. I'm going to be talking to your friend John coming up soon, in fact.
Oh, I can't
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah, his episode may be out in May or possibly June, early June. I can't remember. I have a million coming up, but
Mhm.
Intermittent Fasting Stories is the name of that. Go through your favorite podcast app. If you are interested more in the science side of things, listen to the Intermittent Fasting podcast with my co-host Melanie Avalon. She and I talk about all the science out there. But listen to either of those, and also go to jenstevens.com. You can check out Delay, Don't Deny, my first book. I have another book called Feast Without Fear. That was my second book. And it's all about why we're different when it comes to what foods work well for our bodies. It's like why your friend who did the keto diet felt great, but you felt awful, but you did great on the low fat diets of the 90s. And we really are different when it comes to what foods work for us. Your vegetarian friend isn't lying when they say they feel great. Well, your carnivore friend also isn't lying when they say they feel great. And we're all different. And you have permission to figure out for yourself what foods work for you instead of having to, listen to a guru tell you what you're supposed to eat. That's what my second book's all about.
That sounds amazing also.
Yeah, because my mission in life is really, and I didn't know I was doing this until I did it. But
Yeah.
my mission in life is to get people out of the diet mentality and also teach people that our bodies are wise and that the answers are within us. They're not out there. It's not a magical thing you take. It's not a magical plan you buy. It's not someone else telling you what to do. Even me, you know, when you're reading my books and hearing what I say about intermittent fasting, I still want you to find the plan that works well for you. Maybe 19.5 worked well for me, but maybe a 5-hour window isn't enough for your body. Maybe you'll do better with a 7-hour window or an 8-hour window or a 2-hour window. And you have permission to experiment and figure out what works for you. The same is true for foods. I don't need a doctor writing a book to tell me, this is the plan and this is what you eat at this time of the day. Instead, I need to realize what makes me feel great. And those are the foods that work well for my body. And just like I learned sugar doesn't make me feel great, I didn't have to read that or know it. I was like, oh, I eat a lot of sugar. My legs feel crazy. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Not because someone told me to. And I'd always heard, quote, sugar is bad. But I also, I've read books where they tell you that, bread is bad, or books that tell you that butter is bad. There are books that tell you, there's a book that tells you everything is bad.
My feeling is anything that somebody is a proponent of, there's somebody who is absolutely
Yeah,
100% against whatever that is.
that's why
Wow.
we're so confused. And then as Americans, we keep trying to find the answer in a plan, in a book, and we think the magic is going to be in, someone please tell me what to do, when really we can figure it out ourselves.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. And thanks to John McDonnell out there, who's going to be featured on one of your podcasts, for hooking us up and telling me all about you. We go way back, many
Well,
years.
he's hilarious.
He is.
His first post in the group, I'll never forget it. His first post, people often, I have large Facebook groups. We have like over 300,000 members from around the world. And John popped up one day and his first post was a before and after. You know how people love to have before and afters? His before and then his after. And he's like, I'm 30 seconds in. Look different yet.
That sounds like John. I'm 30 seconds in. So you have a Facebook group too. So let's.
I have several, yeah, but
okay. We can find those on your website too.
Yeah, search for Delay Don't Deny. You'll find them that way.
Delay Don't Deny.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks. You have a great day.
You too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Much appreciation to Jen Stevens. Hope that her new book sells very well. She's really helping a lot of people. And thank you guys for listening in to The Exploding Human, which I would love if you would subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. A free subscription. When I get enough people, I'm going to start probably streaming these interviews live with video. That's going to be an experiment that I'd like to try. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to go to my webpage, which I would also appreciate, it is theexplodinghuman.com. Thanks for listening, everybody, and have a great day.